The texter said to me, Sean, have you heard the good news? Play my music. We'll take it, man. A win in Baltimore, getting on the plane, getting on that bird, coming home with a W, and a W where they did more than enough, I think, in terms of boxes checked. I mean, whatever perfect scenario you could have written up for this game with a healthy Texans team against a banged-up Ravens team, I think they exceeded it yesterday. They scored on their first 8 possessions. The defense, other than a 56-yard bust to Zay Flowers, played practically a perfect game. No turnovers, got out healthy. That was about as good a Sunday, and I will say this, Seth Payne, I think that is as good a coaching job as DeMeco Ryans has done since he's been the Texans head coach. You know, sometimes the good coaching jobs are against better teams when you make in-game decisions. That he had this team that focused and that dialed in when they could have just kind of laid off a little bit because of all these injuries. I thought that was just a perfect day yesterday.
I thought, in terms of, it's not like an in-game decision-making thing or anything out of the head coach. It's having a coach prepared for a game that, look, if you go in and win that game 6-3, you're not going to feel so hot going into the bye week. You're going in against an incredibly beleaguered Ravens squad that was already struggling on defense. So what would a good team do in that situation? Do what other good teams have done, like the Bills and the Chiefs, if they are indeed a good team, just put up 37-plus points against them, which is what teams have been doing against the Ravens. So they did that. And, I mean, you can qualify it all you want and say, well, what's it really mean or whatever. I don't care right now other than that the abyss that it looked like the team might be staring into at one point as the offense was near the bottom of just about every statistical category. If the offense were genuinely that bad, they would have gone in and scored 10 points. They would have done what the Ravens did a few weeks ago. Yeah. They would have the Browns. Yeah. You wouldn't have scored points. So they did that. And the most encouraging part of it was that opening drive because CJ got the ball to 7 different ball carriers, either as runners or as receivers on that first drive. British Brooks got involved. Nick Caley was pulling out his entire playbook, and they were executing it properly. That part was really good to see. But the only time I was a little bit nervous was on that first defensive drive when the Ravens ran 11 or 12 plays. Mm-hmm. They ended up settling for a field goal. But my concern going into that game was that the Texans were going to be so focused on stopping Derrick Henry that Cooper Rush ends up looking like an all-pro quarterback. And Cooper Rush, to his credit, made a couple of really nice tight window clutch throws on that opening drive as the Texans were focused on Derrick Henry. But they found the right balance and, A, shut Derrick Henry down, and, B, they intercepted Cooper Rush 3 times.
Yeah. Petrie had 2. Lassiter had Lamb. I just saw a video before we started. Lassiter wasn't even supposed to be in on that play. Sarge was interviewing Azeez Al-Shaair, and I guess Lassiter had a cramp or something, or there was a guy who had a cramp, so Lassiter came back into the game for one play and gets a pick.
And Rashad Bateman just quits on the
play. Just stops. Yeah.
I mean, that was a classic. At first I thought, well, Cooper Rush is just – I credit him for just flinging it up there in a desperation moment, I suppose. Yeah. No. He had what he thought was a good chance at throwing it to Rashad Bateman.
He looked pissed, too.
He just stopped.
They showed Cooper Rush afterwards. He looked angry.
That was the kind of game for the Ravens that gets a head coach fired. I mean, that looked like a classic, the team has quit.
Yes.
So many weird things happened in the second half where it just looked like, okay, this is a team that's out of control.
Well, it was almost too. That's where I love watching the broadcast. You have J.J. Watt on the telecast yesterday, and it's almost like you guys as players. It's like a dog whistle, you guys probably see things that the regular people don't see in teams that look like they've quit. And it's one thing to be a seriously less talented football team out there. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens had like a preseason depth chart out there yesterday. Let's call it what it is. Even JJ even said at one point on the broadcast, this feels like the second half of a preseason game. But you could tell there was a moment in the first half. I think it was when the Texans went up 24-3, and JJ, you could tell by JJ's tone, this wasn't just like a throwaway line. Like, boy, they really look like they've quit out here. That he was saying like, these are not the Baltimore Ravens that I recognize, and you could tell he didn't mean it in terms of like, okay, well, this guy's playing instead of Roquan Smith, and this guy's playing instead of Marlon Humphrey, and Cooper Rush's quarterbacking. You could tell he meant you could tell what he meant was this is a team that doesn't look like they're trying, or that they don't bring that same. The one thing about the Ravens you could count on was all 53 guys brought the same ethos to the stadium. And yesterday, man, like it was once it got to be like 17-3, I felt zero danger in that game at all.
I think the fact of the matter was there were very few actual Ravens out there on the field.
Yeah.
The guys that you've paid because you think that, these guys are Ravens.
Yeah.
All 6 of the top paid guys on the team weren't out there on the field.
Yeah.
The moment for me was in the second half when, Jalen Noel gets his touchdown and does the Ray Lewis dance.
Yeah.
Which, truth be told, not a huge fan of that, but whatever. But then B, Jair Alexander, noted weirdo, and he's been on the team for all of 3 minutes. He's the guy that comes and tries to steal the ball from him. So, he's the defender of the Ravens way or something.
He played one game before that.
What's that.
He had played one game as a Raven before that.
And none of the other Ravens care. I'm not saying that the Ravens should have been out there, creating a brawl or something. But then on the very next series, you've got an actual Raven and Mark Andrews bobbling the ball and letting it go for an interception to Jalen Petrie. Yeah. It was just the wheels were completely off the wagon at that point.
No question. So getting a win in ball, I think that's the big thing in terms of the big picture historical with the franchise. Getting a win this season and being 2-3. I never thought I'd feel great about being 2-3 going into a bye week, but when you start 0-3, I guess you'll take 2-3. To me, the big thing as far as the between the lines, feeling good, this is 2 games, basically 5 straight quarters of C.J. Stroud looking like 2023 C.J. Stroud again.
Looking really comfortable, looking confident. I think yesterday, one of the big things for me, and again, it's against the banged-up defense, but on some of the play action early on where he's got his back turned to the defense and he's got to turn around and just feel comfortable knowing and seeing what the coverage is, he was just unleashing it to Nico Collins. Yeah. And JJ talked about that on the broadcast, some of those in-breaking routes that you want to be able to feast on, give Nico Collins a chance for run after the catch. That was really good. The biggest thing I've seen from Kaylee over the last couple weeks that's really satisfying, because it might give a hint at, there is a plan here and it's all coming together, is a lot of the deception in the backfield, the jet sweeps, some of the things that look like zone read, all that stuff. You got a jet sweep to Nico Collins in that game. Yeah. That stuff sets up other stuff, and as you start to get a lot of film out there, and I think that Kaylee was probably thinking that during this game, even as it's a blowout, is that, man, put as much of this stuff on film as possible, because it's more that defenses have to defend and think about.
Yep.
And as long as guys are executing it properly and not properly and all of that, then, man, you really start to build up a catalog of plays and deception that you can use. One of the most promising things for me on the day was that despite using a plethora of different ball carriers and a plethora of rookies, they had 4 penalties on the day.
Yeah.
And I think that if they had tried to run that same playbook with those same players in week 1 or week 2, there would have been 29 pre-snap penalties. Mm-hmm. It would have been a disaster.
Yep.
That part of it, that's independent of what the defense is showing you, or at least more so. That's just guys knowing what they're supposed to be doing and executing it properly. That was really gratifying to see.
I agree. Yeah, I think you can't separate Stroud and Kaylee in this. It was great to see CJ look as comfortable as he did, look super comfortable all day, and then Nick Caley called a game where the Texans didn't punt until Davis Mills came in. I mean, it's hard to criticize anything they did offensively yesterday at all. Here was DeMeco Ryans on what does this performance yesterday say about Nick Caley?
Kaylee's done a great job, and it didn't show the first weeks, and because we didn't execute well. Like, we came out today and guys executed. We run our offense the right way. We run our defense, our special teams. When we do it the right way, it's what we're capable of doing. We just have to stay the course, everybody, and continue to get better. That's coaches, that's players, everybody. And we're all in this together. We're all growing. We're all getting better as the season continues to go along.
Yeah, British Brooks having 2 carries in the game was really cool. In short yardage, and they were both for first downs. I loved the second one. I loved because at 10, the Ravens had just scored to make it 34-10, and the Texans had 4th and short on their own side of the 50-yard line, and DeMeco was like, "We're going for it. We're going to keep the ball.
they have been good in short yardage situations over the last few weeks. You know, that QB sneak with CJ a couple times against the Titans worked out pretty well. And, yeah, and British Brooks just didn't plow up into the line and get the first down by half a yard. He had 2 carries for 15 yards. Like, he was and again, that's something they haven't used, like British Brooks carrying the ball as a fullback. Yet another thing that the defense needs to be mindful of, you know, when they play the Seahawks in a couple weeks, Seth, and it's 4th and 1, British Brooks is on the field. That's one more thing that the Seahawks need to pay attention to in those situations.
I think Jalen Noel also, this is where I was wondering about Jalen Noel. And of the 3 rookies, of the 3 rookie skill position players that you're watching, Woody Marks and Jaden Higgins had made more of an impact so far. The thing that I was most excited about was that Jalen Noel, right off the bat with that kick return, he looked comfortable, confident, and assertive there. It had gotten to a point where even on the punt returns especially, it looked like Jalen Noel was just really overly thinking things. He had been running laterally these last few games, looking kind of hesitant. And D'Amico a few weeks ago, actually during training camp, had talked about how he's had to tell Jalen Noel, hey, don't think so much, just go, just go. And that's a struggle that rookies, especially conscientious rookies, face sometimes, is that, man, you want to do everything right, and you're just thinking all the time, and it slows you down. I think we saw more of that shot out of a cannon game. Getting the touchdown, obviously, is hopefully going to be a big confidence booster for him. So you go into the bye week, and you really can take and look at what the rookies have done for you, what can you continue to emphasize, where can they improve. It's a perfectly timed bye week. As miserable as the bye week was last year, this is the exact opposite. I think this is the perfect time to really sit down and think, all right, good, what can we build on from here?
That's funny, because my very first thought in the postgame was the exact opposite of that. I'm like, they finally got a little momentum going offensively. I'd rather they play a game next week and keep this thing kind of rolling a little. You can argue either way, obviously, but I'm like, man, I don't want this. We've had 5 straight quarters of elite offensive football from this team. I don't want this thing to cool off for a week.
I'll tell you what. I mean, my first thought after the game, this is how it always goes usually, is, okay, man, the pass rush wasn't really getting there. You go back and watch, and for one, I mean, credit to Cooper Rush. Cooper made some really nice throws with, at times, 3 or more bodies collapsing on him. Mm-hmm. And you look at Cooper Rush and you think, okay, they don't have to use a mush rush or a disciplined pass rush to keep him in the pocket, all of that. What they did have to do, though, was stay home and play a little bit more conservatively as a defensive line to stop Derrick Henry. Yeah. So guys weren't firing off the ball quite the same as they usually do in a game where they might just be thinking, get in the backfield, get in the backfield, get in the backfield. They played really disciplined football. That takes a little pepper off your pass rush. But then you also look at it, and, I mean, because of the game flow, Will Anderson had 22 snaps in the game. Daniil Hunter had That's it.
I hadn't looked at the snap counts. Oh, my God. Wow.
I mean, and Will Anderson came real close to a couple sacks. The one he missed, and then Mario Edwards ended up cleaning it up. And then Will had the other one in the second half that he was super close on. So anytime you might not get a lot of sacks, but you cause 3 interceptions in a game, that's partly to a quarterback being uncomfortable. So I felt a lot better about that after rewatching.
Here was they held Derrick Henry to 15 carries for 33 yards. The big wish that you and I had was that this looked like the 2023 version of Derrick Henry when he was with the Titans going against the Texans, and they just completely shut him down. That's what they did yesterday. That box score yesterday looked a lot like the 2023 box scores that Derrick Henry had when Lamar Jackson was not his teammate back then either. Here was D'Amico yesterday on the Texans stopping the run.
Yeah, for us defensively, that was our main goal. We knew we had to stop the run. We knew Derrick Henry would get more touches. He would try to get more opportunities. And our guys did a really nice job starting up front with our defensive line. Our tackles played really well. Our ends set the edge, and we tackled really well. Really got to watch the film, but just watching it from the sideline, I felt us tackle much better as a team. And it was multiple guys at the ball every single time they ran the ball. So I'm very proud of us. And as we go throughout the season, the one thing I implore our team about is let's just get better. Like each and every week, let's just get a little bit better each and every week, and our team will continue to get stronger.
Swarm plus form tackling.
Yeah.
That's a pleasant development. Jalen Petrie especially, really, you can see him emphasizing, really wrapping up.
Yeah.
A lot of these. And again, going back and watching, and my immediate impression after the game versus going back and rewatching a time or two, some of my frustration with the missed tackles, There were some missed tackles in the game that were valid, and you should be frustrated over them. But some of them, it was just Zay Flowers. Oh, my gosh. Dude, he is crazy with his ability to jump back.
Yeah.
It's not even a jump cut. It's like a disappearing act.
He's a good player,
and there were a
man.
couple times down that one drive where they got down to 3rd and short. I mean, the Texans defense, to their credit, they got duped by Zay Flowers on a hop back, but then they rallied and ended up tackling really at where his previous forward progress was after he had duped 3 guys out of their shoes. And on non-missed tackles, but just like incredible display of athleticism by Zay Flowers.